A quick artist spotlight right here at NGEN Radio. Fern Marty Social Club, Misfits. I think it was. This is it. Got to be an interview I've been waiting on for a long time. Man, I want to start off talking. We play a lot of you guys' music here at NGEN, but like we were just talking before we even started, man. Let's start with Marty, man. What do you think? How's God working in your life in the middle of this pandemic?
Yeah, this season's been really interesting navigating it. I think everyone can agree. Um, we're all in this together, and so it's like everyone's going through their, something personal. For me personally, I think, God's just been shaking up uh, my theology. He's been shaking up my marriage, been shaking up my relationships, my work ethic. Um, I feel as if right now, like it almost feels like it's a season where it's like I'm afraid to be so busy because I feel like right now, like we have, for us, I think as musicians, the thought is, hey, like we're not performing, right? So like now it's like scramble mode, So a lot of people are scrambling to figure out what they can do, and for me, I don't want to get lost in the scramble and not like observe what God is doing, for me personally. So for me personally, I feel like whether it's just checking me on character, my character has been something that I really feel like the Lord in this last year has been working on, just relationship wise, and even with my marriage. I just think as if like 2020 really brought out the idea of, do we really believe in God? That's what I believe.
Right.
Like I believe like everyone's theology, everyone like it became very real. Like the church in general, we're really good at, and I like church as us. Like we're really good at going to church and having our friends and saying what's up. But for me, it's like, now, do you really believe God's good? Do you still believe God is good even in the middle of a pandemic when, we're not making money, we're not being able to perform, we're not, every I guess foundation, like everything in our life that we held dear was totally removed. Whether it's performing or even like being able to perform the songs live or being able to be on the road and network, and even just going to studio sessions, it's kind of stopped. The last album we didn't record in person. Not that we really
Right.
ever do, but it does help when you can get in the studio and like work. And so I feel like God is more concerned, and this has just been my like revelation. I feel like God's just more concerned with character than He is with the success that everyone sees. Like the character matters so much, and if God doesn't help you work on your character, I think the bigger you become as an artist, the harder you're gonna fall. And that's just personal experience in my life. Like I just believe that like God is working on certain things so He could take me to the level that He needs me to be. But I don't want to be a cautionary tale. I mean, think about how many pastors or people in the Christian world that have let us all down in 2020. It's a shame. It's
Right.
scary. And I don't want to be a cautionary tale. I want to be someone who could finish the fight. And Bible says He disciplines who He loves, and I believe that God has, whether it's even just my language and how I speak and communicate and the harshness, because I'm a very aggressive person. Whether it's kind of soften me up a little bit and having more compassion for people, but more on a spiritual level of, I just feel like God just working on some stuff. Even the whole like the idea of like my theology has been shaken up. I don't want to take up everyone's time, but like there's been so many areas. I mean, I don't even know where to begin because it's like I feel like 2020 really made me confront some areas of my life that were problematic, and God was like, I know like there's a lot to deal with here, but I promise you, you're going to come out, and the good part hasn't started. And so there's a great sermon this weekend. I was watching from home church by Stephen Furtick, and his sermon was basically like, the good part is coming, you know? And the idea of like, sometimes we'll watch like, TV shows, and someone will be like, hey, I recommend this TV show. And it's like, you got to kind of get past the first couple of seasons, and then it starts to get good. And then I'm like, like, why do I have to wait so long? And sometimes that's like our lives, like In the
Yeah.
beginning, it kind of doesn't start right, and then it starts to get worse, and then
Yeah.
there's a point where God intervenes, and God becomes a part of that story that will make it eventually good. And we could see whether it's the life of Joseph or any of these guys, the life of Paul, where in the
Yeah.
beginning it was bad, and then God redeemed that story. And I think that's for me. I think being on the road, I've been able to mask a lot of the problems that we've had, and me personally, like I've been able to success hides a lot of your character flaws, and when you're come to reality with who you are, it's either you to fix it or you just become a bigger problem. So I just been God's been working on more character and different things. I just feel like I gave you a whole word jumble, but yeah, sorry.
Oh man,
A lot to
Social
talk
Club
about. There's a lot.
Misfits.
There's a lot to unpack there. It's not one thing. It's God. Just been the Holy Spirit works on one thing at a time. I feel like in my life, and
Yeah.
Amen.
it's I feel like it's like six things back to back to back that God's been really
Yeah.
working on. I think for me, I have the type of personality where I love to make everybody laugh, right? I love to make everyone feel comfortable, and sometimes I use that as an excuse to um, put people down. I use that excuse to say things that I think are funny or maybe even like joking, and they're really not. They're actually like at the expense of somebody, and I feel like that just my language in general. I feel like in 2020, like the idea of me, if you were to be like Marty, like how do you talk at home? I would say my language, even from like profanity to it, just started like incorporating itself in my life, and I think that comes a big piece of me being pulled out of the community of God. When you're around friends and people who love God, you start to get sharper, and and God starts to like convict you in certain areas. And I think that in the beginning of 2020, I stopped going. We all stopped going to church. I stopped going to church for about 6 months because church wasn't open where we were. It just wasn't. And I feel like in terms of just the way that I would communicate with my wife or just communicate with friends, it was just more laced with profanity. It just really was. And I feel like, for some of us, it's not a big deal. I know for a lot of people, they're like, oh, who cares? But for me, like, I'm a Christian artist, and not only am I a Christian artist, but first and foremost, I'm a believer. And how am I supposed to
Mm.
interact with people who aren't like me and be a light when I look just like them? And so for me, it was a big deal. It was like, God, like, forgive me for thinking that I can get comfortable and uncoachable. And that's another thing, like just the idea of being uncoachable, being not a part of the church. I feel like for a couple of months, we community, I didn't know how important it was. And there's certain areas, and my wife was like, dude, you're just like being mean for the sake of being mean, or I'm just doing this. There were certain areas of my life that like specifically I think my code of conduct was off. And so I'm really thankful that God just kind of reeled me back in and convicted me. And I'll give you an example. I was in Orlando a while back, in the beginning of 2021, and we're on this ride, and I said this joke to my wife, and it was definitely like making fun of somebody. And I know it's awful, but I think when you go to like Orlando or you go to any of these theme parks, you see people and you're like, wow, America. I know it sounds really bad. I'm gonna say it. I'm like, America's so fat. I don't know why. I always think of that when I go to the theme park. Like that's not appropriate, but I said it, and I remember a fan being behind me and being like, "Is that Marty?" And I was like, "Oh, that scared me." He heard everything I
Dang.
said, and I remember him being like, "Oh, I heard your voice. I knew it was you." And I just thought to myself, like, "Wow, shame." Like, am I going to be the person um, that is walking in a way that my speech identifies that I'm a believer, that there's hope in my voice, or am I going to be somebody who like tears people down for as a joke? And that was one of the first part of that process. I feel like for me, that was really just like a character driven thing, whether it's what I look at, what I consume, what I say, and I think a lot of that played a big part in who I was.
No, really good stuff. Social Club Misfits, Marty, you just gave us a whole lot. Fern,
Sorry.
take us back. No worries, no worries. No, take us back. 2020, when pandemic first hit, things things started to close. Like Marty was saying, churches started to close. Um, what was the shock? What was the shock value? How did God speak into your life, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you this afternoon. One thing Marty knows, right before the world closed down, we went on tour. We had like 3 House of Blues shows in California before we came back to Florida, and we was like right where like this special case was in I don't know, Mount Sinai Hospital, or was it? I forgot. But make a long story short, we went right into where there was some cases of coronavirus right in the early stages of it. And so, we was already, masked up, precautioned up. We were already, wearing, gloves and sanitizer, all that kind of stuff. But it was all brand new to us, a pandemic, you hear about all that stuff in 1918, you hear about all that stuff, but like, how's that going to play in real time now? But I think it's safe to say, that we just saw it. There was a lot of uncertainty, but I feel like in my, personal case, I was able to like really lock in, and what I locked in was into my family. You know what I'm saying? Marty knows, and I always like say that as a precursor because he knows, like, for the most part, we were on the road 250 days a year per se, for like the last 8 years. For like the last 8 years at least. Shameless plug, this is like Social Club's 10th year anniversary, since we put out our first, situation. So we've been blessed to be doing it for a minute, but at least 8 years touring, and we had a lot of dates. And I remember a couple times, at least 2018, being on the back of the bus, like losing family members. We were losing family members. We were on the road. We couldn't come back to, funerals, or we were missing weddings. We were missing birthdays and things of that nature. And, every now and again, you just break down and like, hey, I really wish I could just be home. You probably just rocked in front of 7,000 people, AT&T, this and that, you feel me? PlayStation Arena, this and that, with so-and-so, this and that. Man, Marty, damn, I wish I was at the house. Don't worry, Fur, you going home for a couple of days. You know what I mean? Like, we used to have to comfort each other here and there, get a little homesick. But, I say that as a precursor to this. Marty said it as well, being artists and the world shutting down, what were we going to do? What was an artist that just basically, and someone like me who had, a prior record, so I'm an ex-con, had a prior record, it was COVID, so it was like double whammy on me trying to get a job or something like that. So like literally rap saved my life. I looked at it. I told my mom right now in the studio where I record, my little closet, that's the same little closet where me and my boy Chad were rapping when I had some turntables in there. I was like 17. And my dad walked in, y'all cursing in here? Y'all cursing in here? Get out of here. Y'all cursing in here. And I'm like, Dad, I'm like, me and Marty, like, we're changing the world out the same closet. He was like, oh my God, I was tripping. I was like, you was tripping? I was tripping too, But, it's just been an amazing time to really rediscover what the little things were. We were just so focused on getting business going, doing shows and doing albums, doing whatever it was for the last 10 years. When this shutdown hit, I mean, we were literally just at the house, shut down, with your thoughts, with your family, And me, I went into protector mode. I went into father mode, father Fern. Usually, what I'm saying, I'm rapping Fern, and I'm usually trying to balance how to be a dad and a rapper. Now, what I'm saying, coming back, or let's just say it starts to open up, I'm really trying to figure out how to be a rapper again and a father. After being a father for a whole year and really diving in. That's what I really have found to be the silver lining of the pandemic for me, was that I was able to get all those days that I talked about. Man, I wish I was at the house. Oh, I miss so-and-so. Oh, I didn't get to go see my son's chapel, this and that. I've been home with them for a whole year. I've been home for a whole year. I've been able to build those bonds. It's almost like I got probably if you count all the days, I probably got all the days back. I literally probably got all the days back from all the touring that we did. And it's just been an amazing thing to build the bonds with my son, to, be daddy for my daughter, and to be here for my wife, you know what I'm saying? Because, they put up with it and they have to deal with it, and they're we're an entertainment family. But I know it takes a toll, and I know that, they miss their dad, or, you miss those important dates and things take a toll. So, being a pandemic and just really being able to sit down and just restructure, dive into my family, really just like love on them. And that's really what it's been for the whole year. Marty knows I really didn't go anywhere at all. Like, I literally didn't leave the house. I didn't post pictures. I was just here. And one of the things that I realized the other day, that a lot of people documented with pictures or found other ways to document the last year. And what I realized going through my computer is that every single day I was recording music. So that was the way I found my solace, constantly recording. We constantly recorded every day, but it was just a different thing that when we literally had nothing to do in the world, was it still something that you love to do? Was it still gonna be, the thing that you were gonna continue in your career? Or were you gonna especially me, you know what I'm saying? Was I gonna try to find other things to do, which I did find some side hustles, but I did fall in love with making music, even though I didn't really have to. Yeah, we put out an album last year, but we didn't really have to do anything last year as far as traveling or anything. So I could have really easily, just got caught up. And even though I was 100% in being a father, I still found time to make music. And I say that now because it's going to be so important coming out, of the pandemic, to have just, some content to have out, and just so many things coming out instead of a wasted time. Because I feel like you could have made something out of it, or you could have, just sat in the solace of it and really didn't accomplish anything, kind of just let the time pass by, because that time is going by so fast. Even though I look back, dang, a whole year went by, but that pandemic went by pretty fast. We're sitting over here the third month of 2021. We got vaccines going all over the place. I remember when we didn't even know if we're supposed to be wearing masks. You know what I'm saying? So it's just been going by so fast. But I just thank God that he was able to give me that time with my family and really just, get back in that zone of being a father. Because I always, that's really in my heart the whole time. Even like I said, when I'm on the road, that's really on my heart the whole time. I'm on FaceTime the whole time with the fam, with the kids, and, to be able to be home with them the last year and really just, be the Mirandas, be the family, and it's just been an amazing time. That's the main thing that I've been able to get.
I gotta ask you guys this, and Fern, man, you hit it on the head when you started talking about family and wife, and Marty, you even mentioned your wife. A lot of people, a lot of our listeners, even including me, we all have that one thing in common, is the family aspect of how this past season has affected everybody, right? You guys were just saying, man, you're a group, or you two individuals that were on the road all the time. So every day in the everyday life of people with their hustle and bustle of life, job and career and ambitions and entrepreneurship, man, speak to those people right now that wake up each and every day, and yeah, they're chasing their paper, they're chasing their degree, they're chasing their career versus their purpose. You guys live that. You guys are on the road 200 plus days a year, and then boom, pandemic happens. Sit down and enjoy my family. Speak to those people now that are chasing that paper versus that purpose that you guys were missing.
I mean, my wife, she started a new business last year, middle of pandemic. She's getting her master degree right now, and I would say I think the theme in our house is, purpose. It's a weird conversation for me because I feel like there's potential and then there's purpose, right? Purpose to me is like a seasonal thing. Sometimes in this season, I feel like, God, my purpose right now is, being a musician, being on the road. That will eventually change. Maybe it'll change in another year or so, whatever that would look like. I think that my first purpose, I think for me personally, would just make sure that my wife is, our marriage is good. That would be my first purpose. That'd be my first ministry. That'd be the most important thing. I've seen my wife hustle and work, and I've invested in her. She's invested in herself. I've seen her business close down for 3 months because of the quarantine. I don't know where you are in your life, but I just want to encourage anybody who's listening to this, your purpose. It's like they always say, it's not a destination, it's a journey. That's how I feel about purpose, because ministry for me really wasn't ever my purpose. I felt like when I was a youth pastor at the time, I was youth pastor about 12 years ago. That was my purpose. I didn't want to do music, and then God shifted my heart to do something new, which was music. And now I feel another shift in my heart to do other things. And I think it takes a lot of being able to listen to the Holy Spirit and say, God, what do you want from me? I think for me, right now, I think the purpose right now for me is I want to get my life right. I want to get my family life right. I want to get my skill set right. And where I want to go next, where I'm dreaming and where I'm hoping to go next, is going to require a lot of like technical skill, because I love producing. I love songwriting for people. That's like becoming a big passion of mine, writing for other people. So I just feel like wherever you're at, do what you do. Like there's a scripture that says, whatever's in your hand, like I forgot the word, I forgot the scripture, but it's like whatever's in your hand, you make the most of it. Like if you're working at a restaurant, or whether you're working at a church, your commission, I think first and foremost, is to be a believer. And then, because I think we could, I don't ever want to be the type of person where my destiny is, all secure, all my eggs are in one basket. Because what if that basket gets removed from me? And I think that, I have friends right now who started churches in the middle of the pandemic, and they were not allowed to meet. So it's like, all right, what do we do now? It's a scary situation. Life is like a constant adjustment of, like, God, where do you want me to be? If this is where you want me to be, let me make the most of it. Let me be obedient. I find a lot of like peace in reading the story of Solomon, and how Solomon, he perfected the average, ordinary things to the point where when a queen came by, she was like, wow, like just the average is excellent here. Like, what do you have right now that's in your hand? What can you work on in your own life that you can make great and make excellent? Whether it's like Fern saying, like it's your marriage right now, or it's like just committing yourself at your job, wherever it looks like. You don't have to be work at a church to spread the gospel. You don't have to work at a church to be a spreader of light and be a light wherever you are. Some of my closest friends don't work at a church, but they make the biggest impact where they are in their life, and they make an impact in culture. And so I think, I don't know where everyone's in their life, or what you're doing, but I would just say, like, whatever you have and whatever you're working on, make the most of it. Involve God into everything you do. I would always hear every year, pastors would always be like, God goes first, and then it's your family, and this, that, and the other. And then one day I was like, why can't God be a part of everything? Why can't God be the core fundamental of everything we do and how we operate? And so, yeah, I mean, my wife's getting her master's right now. She's has her own business that she has to deal with. So if clients, mess around, she takes the loss there. And so I think that I love seeing her thrive and even spread the light of Jesus Christ where she's at. But I also feel like there's a possibility of being spread too thin. Jesus was really good at, like, Mike Todd says his sermon. He said Jesus didn't use his full potential. Jesus could have really done a lot more, but he was so focused on what God had before him, and he knew his calling and his destiny, that he had to be obedient to where he was at. And so I just feel like, as if, wherever you're at, make the most of it, put God in the center of it, and things will start to make sense. And God has a great way of honoring people who honor him. So a lot of times we think like, oh, what's God? How's God going to use me in the middle of this, where I'm at right now? But God has a funny way of connecting things and being like, wow, if I didn't have that job, then I wouldn't have been here. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have been here. God's like the spider web effect of, like, one thing leads to another. And I think that's true in my life. 12 years ago, before Social Club, I was working at Nordstrom. I was working at a church. I was interning at two places. And then God put me where I'm at right now. And now I'm thinking, God, where do you want me next? This is not the peak for me. I want to get to the next level.
Love it. Fern, I want to switch, and I want to talk about musically. We were just talking about the pandemic, and you guys got music out now. You got music before the pandemic. You guys been a group. I think you said 10. It's 10 years.
Wow, yeah.
10 years,
yes,
guys.
sir.
Yeah. Fern, how have you guys grown in the music, especially with your latest project, sonically, with the doctrine, the whole nine? Where are you guys at this time?
One thing that I feel is beautiful about Social Club is that we've always been so transparent, always wore our hearts on our sleeve. Everything that we've ever thought, everything that we've ever felt, we literally put it, in the music. And it's all been true, you know what I'm saying? So that's been an amazing thing. So saying that to say this, you could literally hear the growth when you play back the discography, when you start in the very first project going all the way to the, to where we are right now at Fear by Hell. You could literally hear Martin going through his growing pains, going through situations in life from before he was married to when he was dating. You hear his dating life, you hear him growing, all the way to now being in love and being married to his wife. And you hear those stories, and you hear me before I had babies, before I was a father. And then once I became a father, you start to hear how those stories take over the flow. And I mention my kids more in my raps. You literally hear the growth when you just hear the discography. But as far as personally feeling the growth, it's been an amazing thing to be in the game, 10 years in, what they call, for the most part, a subgenre, Christian hip hop. You know what I'm saying? For the most part, we do get respect outside the genre. You know what I'm saying? It's been an amazing thing to get, the respect from other peers as well. But, we've always been in it for the audience of one. So, ever since the beginning, it's always been about God. And that's been the reason why Social Club has worked and has been able to be, come on, man. I mean, we've been a group for 10 years, you know what I'm saying, in a social media era. You know what I'm saying? You got to really think about that. You know what I'm saying? Like you always hear the argument, could LeBron have made it in the 90s? They would, they would have beat him up. You know what I'm saying? Then they're like, could Michael Jordan made it in the late 2000s with all the social media eating his head up and things of that nature? And Scottie Pippen hearing about all the stuff, you know what I mean? It would have been a different thing.
Right.
So it's just an amazing thing. It's just an amazing time to be able to make music in an era after transcending another era. Like, we've been in different eras and we're still here, and I feel like we still have some music to make. And, Social Club's just been a fun thing. It's been a fun thing that God has been able to use, and that's been the fun part about it.
I want to get you to do something that you probably have done once or twice, or maybe never, Fern. You said you were a convict, right?
Yes.
Ex-convict. Okay. Do me a favor, man. Look right in the camera, bro, and talk to that guy or that girl that has had a record that sometimes the game. Some people can use it as a crutch. Some people can use it as an excuse to hold themselves back. Speak to that person right now who's been in the system before. Encourage that person.
Ironically enough, too, I can't, I've been home 11 years, and that record still precedes me. It still follows me everywhere I go, because that crime, for whatever reason, it can't even be expunged. I had lawyers trying to look into it and things of that nature. So for those who have, been caught in the system, you know what I'm saying? Whether you're in the system now or you've been out the system, but you can't get your record clean and it still follows you, listen, there's life after that. And hopefully I'm living proof of that. We've been able to navigate through life with or without, the approval of man. It's just been the approval of God the whole time. So I would like to say to anybody going through that situation right now, you got a court date tomorrow. You got to turn yourself in tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you inside, you seeing this on your cell phone you shouldn't have, but you seeing us right now anyway, and you about to come home tomorrow. Just listen. There's a lot of great opportunity now. It's the best time ever to tell your story, to even monetize your story. There's just amazing opportunity out here now when you come home. Before, people would come home, get lost, and just find themselves going back into prison just to get three hot meals and a bed at night. You know what I'm saying? A clean towel. You know what I'm saying? They call it 3 hots in a cot, But I tell that person right now, you're better than that. Your destiny, your potential is greater than that. The Lord has a greater plan than that. So you have to really lock in, figure what it is that you love, that you're passionate about. Start to invest some time in that, and obviously keep God in the center, because whatever it is you do, he's going to quadruple that and take you to that next level. So I love you. Stay focused, stay on point, and keep God in the center. You're going to be all right, and stay with your family, because they're the only ones that really love you, because the streets don't. You know what time it is.
Absolutely. Marty, CHH, man, what does it mean to you as, like you said, subgenre? It's been 10 years. You guys been rocking with it. Talk about the state of CHH right now.
Unfortunately, this is the reality of it, whether people agree with me or not. I don't think that right now Christian music is competing with really anything right now. And I think that just is an area of opportunity. I feel like there's a lot of great talent, and but I feel like there's a surplus of artists, and there needs to be a surplus of managers, of promoters. There needs to be a surplus of people who do other things than just music. I feel like we have a surplus of a lot of musicians, but some of the best managers and some of the best promoters, they don't even know that they shouldn't be a rapper. They should be a promoter. They should be a manager. I firmly believe that right now, to make an impact, we're going to need a lot more than what we have. You know, yesterday I was in a session with this pop group. They weren't Christian, and the money is so much different. That's just the reality of it. The content is different. Everything is completely different. And I just think about this one band that's unsigned that has this crazy budget that they got from investors, and I'm like, wow, like that is more than our album that you have to spend on. You know, like the money is completely different. And I just think, like, I wish there was more people who worked behind the scenes in Christian music. There was more tastemakers. There was more people. I think we need that. We need it. Like, because right now I think that it's very like artist is pushing the genre forward. And really, like in any other genre, you know, you have the Scooter Brauns that push the Justin Biebers forward, who push the Tori Kellys forward, who push. We need more men and women who are willing to invest in their education to say, you know what, I see the potential and I know that there's an audience that needs to hear this message. So let's continue. I think that the talent has always been there. That's just my opinion. The talent is there. It just is a matter of getting the right people to, you know, hear the music and to push the music. You know, there's a great documentary right now on BET. It's on Hulu. It's about hip hop. And it basically just kind of focuses on the people behind the scenes, the guy behind Nipsey, the guys behind Pop Smoke, the guys behind Eminem. Like, there's so many people behind the scenes that work on the behalf of these artists. And if you were to be like, hey guys, who's behind the scenes in your life? We could say maybe one or two, just management, you know. And I just want to see a genre that doesn't make the same mistake where it's just, you know, right at this point, it's like Lecrae and Andy are to the top, and we love those guys, they're our friends. But I also feel like, you know, outside of that, like who's taking the crown? Like, we're all getting a little older. Who's going to take it? I hope it's the RGs, and I hope it's the Hovies, and I hope it is the One Day. Like, I hope it's those type of an artist. But I'm waiting for the men and women to step up that say, hey, I want to be a manager. I want to make the connections. I want to work. You know, I think about this, right? Post Malone just did a Pokemon concert digitally. I don't know if you knew that. It was an hour long. He probably made $15 million off that. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, we have better content and we have a similar tone and great artists, but there's no one in our corner thinking, hey, let's work those partnerships together. Let's make these things happen. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why that is, but I hope that, you know, we have a army of people who are willing to work and not just be musicians, but be people who fuel that and put the fire and promoters. And we need all that. We need that desperately. So, you know, like it's like that scripture that says, you know, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers is few. And I feel like right now the workers are few. We need more people to step up.